I don't know. Yeah, that's recording. Okay, so we're recording now. So if you don't want your image on there, please turn your camera off immediately and we'll get kicked off. Okay. Um, Welcome everyone to Nature Friendly Farming Network's Spring Demands in the Market Garden webinar with a Scotland focus. We're so pleased to see you all here. Thank you so much for making it. It's not lost on us that this is actually quite a challenging time for all market gardeners and growers to be here because the season has kicked off and everyone's kind of got that frantic spring energy. Um, and I am so grateful for this session because I find this time of year just is everything feels like it needs to be done yesterday, and the pressure of like how everything you do now shapes the season to come can feel quite overwhelming at sometimes. So we are going to hear from three amazing growers that in different spots around Scotland, dealing with very like different conditions and different routes to market and yeah, different systems. So I'm really excited to have these amazing panelists with us today, and I'll introduce them in just a second. Excuse me. But before we go into that, just a little pitch for NFFN. If you haven't heard of us already, we're Nature Friendly Farming Network, and we're a UK-wide member organisation. We're farmer-led, free to join, and we support farmers and growers and crofters to restore, who are kind of working to restore the balance between nature and farming and food growing. So if you are interested, please do sign up as a member. As I said, it's completely free and open to everybody. And you'll receive our monthly newsletter that's got loads of good stuff in and also lets you know about all the events that we're running through the year. So some of them will be of interest to you, I'm sure. So without further ado, we will crack on because we've got loads to get through. And yeah, and I am conscious of all of your time. And I want it to be as much as time for you guys to ask all the questions that you've got about your different kind of growing yeah, contexts as well. So we have three amazing growers. First, we have Connie from East Neuk Market Garden in Fife on the Balcaski estate. And then we've got Anna from West Coast Organics on Skye and runs a CSA veg box and loads of other different things on your croft. So I'm really excited to hear from you, Anna, and to Finlay, who's with Seeds of Scotland, who I'm sure a lot of you guys on this call will be familiar with and have hopefully seeds germinating in your greenhouses now. So yeah, it's really great to have that seed context as well to kind of bring into the picture of resilience and all the decisions that we make now that are kind of going to affect the season ahead. And also just having in mind the seed saving, which is becoming obviously increasingly important for all of us. So first we're going to hand over to Connie to just introduce your context and what's going on for you on the farm right now. And Connie, I'll give you a little heads up at 9 minutes just to make sure we're keeping to time.
Okie dokie.
Thank you.
Might definitely need that. Okay. Can everyone see my?
It's loading. I think it will. Yeah. Yeah, we've got it now.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, hi everyone. My name's Connie. I run East Neuk Market Garden. My husband Tom and our friends Natalie. We are a cooperative since we merged with their business, Falkland Kitchen Farm, a couple of years ago. So I'll just do a quick. There's a lot to talk about. I'll just try and keep time. We are 6 acres now on rented land from the Balcaski estate. We started in 2019. We currently have about 180 CSA shares, supply roughly 12 restaurant, cafe customers. And in terms of people on the ground, we are four co-owners, four part-time staff, and roughly two seasonal workers. Um, I'm just gonna get straight into it. So last in sort of like late winter, early spring, what are we doing? We are fixing things that are broken, things that we've postponed, everything that you say, that's a winter job, then turns out winter is actually a lot shorter than you thought it was. Um, we've had lots of infrastructure projects over the winter, getting a new container for our staff room, putting hard standing down in our new yard. Crop planning obviously should be done a long time ago, but it has only just finished happening now, a couple of days ago. Um, we use a software now called Tend to do our help us with our crop planning. which is helpful but is expensive. Um, Fixing the prop tunnel, so making sure there's enough sand on all the heat benches and fixing everything that's broken, and gathering upfront CSA payments. So that is really, really crucial for our business. It's sort of the only way that we can actually run the farm over the winter when, you need loads of investment and staff time, and there's actually very little to sell. Some of our CSA members choose to pay up front, and that really, really helps us. And organizing this is not exciting for people, but this is the tidiest our shed has looked for maybe 6 years. So it's quite exciting for me. Getting things, just things that actually you realize you spend a lot of time in the season looking for the right size mesh or the right size tarp, just trying to get a bit more organized, having things labeled clear, especially when we're all a part-time team and lots of different people, making sure that everything's really clear for everyone. Just finding stuff is really, want to make it as time sensitive as possible. Cleaning the polytunnels, you can see that that actually was really worth doing. Um, Really important job to do on a rainy day. Um, and then in mid-February we sort of start sowing seeds around Valentine's Day when the days start to get slightly longer. And we do some things before then. We do onions in January because we do all our onions from seed. We don't do any sets. Um, but yeah, we've sort of, in terms of varieties, we've been thinking about that long before, like when we're doing our crop planning and stuff. But ideally, we have, sort of like an order of preference. We want to do as much of our own saved seed as possible. And it's really noticeable. All the tomatoes that we've sown, we've saved most of our own tomato seed. Um, but the ones we've bought in because we want to try new varieties are all so much slower to germinate than ours. Um, and we've got noticeably, our tomatoes are ripe earlier and earlier every year. So it's definitely worth doing. Ideally, we would have Scottish seed. We do buy a lot from Seeds of Scotland, then the UK, and then Europe. But it's sometimes quite hard to tell if you buy from Tamar or wherever whether things are actually grown in the UK or bought in from Europe. So not always possible. Ideally, everything would be not always possible to get the variety that we want, not bound by that. Um, Professional quality, really. So like for some things, we do use like CN seeds because they do big amounts of professional grade quality seed. Yeah, that's sort of our mix of seeds. We are doing planting. This is kind of an example of, we do have quite a lot of problems with mildew in tunnels over winter. We overwinter quite a lot of stuff for a mixture between continuous harvest over winter, things that will be ready in the spring. Um, and so there's quite a lot of things that you just sort of have to make a judgment call. Is it keeping this because actually we need every last scrap of thing available, or is it time to sack it off and put something else in instead? And do you have time to do that before the main summer crops are going in? We try and plant our tomatoes in the last week of April, unless there's a really cold spell in the first week of May ahead. Um, and so really now there's only time to maybe get like a quick catch crop of radish or salad turnip in or something in between. Um, so yeah, lots of judgment calls going on. Soil health. So in terms of how we approach our soil health in general and what we're thinking about at this time of year, over winter we do a lot of trying to do as many cover crops as possible. We want to have as many roots in the ground as possible over winter, really diverse cover crops. We undersow lots of our autumn crops that are in the ground, all the radicchio, beetroot, chard, lots of things are undersown so that there's as many roots in the ground as possible. If not, if they're empty beds, then we try and mulch them with some sort of organic matter, maybe seaweed or straw, and tarp them. Um, and then, yeah, in sort of like late winter, early spring, depending on what's happening where, mowing and tarping. And we started to make some deep compost mulch, no dig beds again after having not done it for many years. Um, just because we think it works really well for our alliums, and we've been missing that, having a really tough time with alliums over the last couple of years. When we flip beds in the tunnels, we use our own compost because it's a really precious resource that we don't have very much of. So we try and keep it for the really high intensity crops that need a lot of fertility. We've started adding humate granules, which are really important for making other minerals available for plants. And broad forking, to sort of loosen the compaction if we feel like it needs it, and cultivating really as a sort of last resort. And we only do that really. We use a power harrow, quite shallow if we need to. And we root soak most things in a seaweed feed before we plant them, just to give them a little boost. And we're just developing plans at the moment for how to inoculate our seeds at the sowing stage to really get them going early and sort of carry some of those biological associations with them out into the field. Um, in terms of pest management, which is left over biodiversity as possible to encourage beneficial insects. In the tunnels, we have lots of like rosemary and lavender in the corners, which provide really good habitat for overwintering insects. But our main pest really at this time of year is rodents. And so we don't direct sow any peas or beans. They're all transplants and they have to be kept up high at all times. This is a picture of our beans outside. Um, and yeah, we put traps out on crops that we think will be susceptible, but try and cover them with a crate or something so that we really don't want any birds to get stuck in there. Sales at this time of year, we run our CSA all year round. We do have 3 weeks off in January just so everyone can have a break. Um, and we do our wholesale from March to December. So at this time of year, we just started our wholesale again a couple of weeks ago. We doing salad, spring greens, spinach, rainbow chard, chervil, parsley, rocket, landcress, spring onions, white and purple sprouting broccoli, kale, rapini or shoots, and cabbage rosettes, which is just a marketing way of trying to sell the reshoots of cabbage plants. But actually, it does seem to be working, so it's worth a go. Um, and this is just to give you an idea of what is actually going in our CSA shares at this time of year. If it's purple, it means it's bought in, and if it's white, it's from the farm. So obviously, at this time of year, it's really heavy on the bought in stuff, and we rely really heavily on Chapel Organics in East Lothian. Um, we don't buy from abroad. We just do, well, Scotland as a preference and then UK wide. So yeah, it can get a bit boring and a bit samey at this time of year. But so our numbers, as you can see there's 157, which is, we go up to more 180 in the summer. So it's good that there's enough people who are willing to eat the seasonal stuff through the winter. But yeah, just in the last couple of weeks, you can see it picking up there in terms of what's actually coming from the farm, more stuff. Um, we do kalettes, which are really good overwintering crop. So we had 3 different varieties last year that were ready like November, December, and then January, February. It's really good. Um,
Connie, sorry, I'm just giving
and
you a 1 minute warning.
this is actually, I think, my last slide,
Ah,
so that's
super.
good. Yeah. And yeah, I think that, yeah, that's just an example of hopefully the things that are to come later in the season. So yeah, that's me.
Amazing. Thank you, Connie. And we've had lots of people join while you were speaking. So just to say to everybody that this is Connie from East Neuk Market Garden. So you were hearing from her. And I meant to say at the beginning, please do write your questions in the chat because we're going to do questions at the end. And we'd love to hear from you. So don't let anything slip away. Put it in the chat now, and we'll come back to it. Thank you so much, Connie. That was great. Can I hand over to Anna now at West Coast Organics?
Hello, everybody. It's nice to be here. I'm just going to try and share my screen. There we go. Has that worked? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so I'm Anna. I'm half of West Coast Organics, which I run with my partner Hanno here on Skye, and we run a organically certified veg box scheme. Uh, yeah, which runs from sort of we're just about to start now through to the end of December. And we use all of our own produce. We experimented a little bit last year with buying stuff in, but I think because of our location of where we are, like any inputs that we have on the croft mean that there's an expense with delivery and stuff. So we've gone back to really trying just to have it just of our own produce. Let me just see if I can move the slide. Oh, ah. Sorry, I'm not sure why it's not going through the slides. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so we're located in the Crofting township of Roag, which is near the town of Dunvegan on the Isle of Skye. So there's a map of Scotland, and then as zoomed in, we have a croft. It's about 4 hectares in size. And it runs right from the sea all the way up to the hill land. And yeah, it's a sort of like a mix of sort of less favourable land where we have our market garden. This picture in the middle here is our market garden before we started it, when we arrived on site. About 10 years ago, and we started the market garden slowly then, as we were like building the house and having a family at the same time. And we now have our market garden, which is that's the same site now, which is about 100 beds, and they're all standardized to 19 meters long by 75 centimeters wide. And we have 2 polytunnels, which in the photo are like just over that hedge. They're right down by the sea. We also have a propagation tunnel up at the house, which is where there's electricity because we've got no electricity down in the market garden. And we've put in like all the infrastructure, the track and the shed and all of the hedging has all been really sort of vital to our operation. And on the rest of the croft, we have goats, we have milking goats, which we milk for ourselves, and then the muck from them goes into the market garden, and we have some trees. We're trying to establish as much forestry as possible on our croft for heating for us, and then also at some point to go into the market garden. We have experimented with other livestock, but we've really kind of like consolidated at the moment just to goats and a few chickens, and really concentrated our energies onto the market garden. And that picture is obviously not from now. It's definitely a lot less green at the moment. That's from sometime in the summer a few years ago. So yeah, what are we doing just now? The sort of one of the main things we're doing, main priorities, is our seed sowing. And this like happens every week from now probably till about July, that we do it every week, and we sort of like try and sort of stagger that so there's a continual kind of movement of seeds getting sown and seeds being in the propagation tunnel, which is what that photo's of, and then moving out to being hardened off and then being planted outside or in the polytunnels. And we started our seed sowing in sort of late January with peppers. And they are started off on heat, which we have these propagation benches in the middle of the tunnel, which have sand on them and coils of wire running through. And then we have this polycarbonate sort of boxes that we've made where we keep the seedlings. And then sort of from late January to mid-February, we're sowing all of our sort of early polytunnel crops. And then from mid-February to mid-March, we're sowing all of our early outdoor crops. And so those sort of early polytunnel and early outdoor crops are quite similar to each other. They're things like that'll be ready for the Hungry Gap. Because last year we felt we didn't have quite enough stuff in the Hungry Gap. And this year, because we're really trying not to buy anything in, we wanted to sort of extend what we have in the Hungry Gap. And so we've sown things like peas and fast-growing brassicas for that early crop. Things like kale, turnips, kohlrabi, pak choi, brassica salads, fennel, little gem lettuce, some spring onions. They've all been sown and then they've all actually gone out into the polytunnel already. Yeah, so so what we're sort of also doing now is moving from sowing seeds. Well, we're still sowing seeds, but sowing seeds and planting out in the polytunnel. So that's all those sort of early crops going out into the polytunnel now. I have been covering those actually with Enviromesh as well, just as a bit of extra protection. Our polytunnels are right down at the sea, and it's like unusual for us to get any kind of frost or anything by this time of year. I mean, it was down to 0 last night, but there didn't seem to actually be much frost or any frost actually down by the sea. And we're like seed sowing, planting out in the polytunnels, and then also cracking on with getting our outdoor veg beds ready. Like we definitely couldn't run our CSA without our outdoor beds. We could do it without the polytunnels, apart from the propagation tunnel, but really the polytunnels, like they do extend the season, but like the majority of our veg definitely comes from outside, which I think a lot of people that live on Skye seem to find that like, oh, I didn't know you could grow any veg on Skye, but actually we grow like a huge variety of different things here on Skye. And so we've been prepping our beds and putting our onion sets out and our tatties there. That was all happening this week, and that's our beds there, our onion beds, which this is a photo from yesterday. In between the hail towers, it was we were putting on onto our beds. We go and get seaweed from the shore. There's quite an abundance of seaweed, and it's like just a few hundred meters down the road, and we can get seaweed. So that goes onto our beds, and we use goat muck from the goats that's sat in a pile for about a year. That goes on to the beds, as well as our homemade compost from the market garden. And then we have been supplementing with a bit of plant-based bought-in fertilizer. Like because of our location, we can't really, there's not like a lot of compost that we could buy in or anything, so we're sort of limited to that. And we've also been sort of focusing a lot on sort of trying to make this our main livelihood. And so we have like sort of been trying to be as productive as possible. And so haven't yet done green manures in the season. Our season is really short, so trying to kind of do them is yeah, it's something that we're moving towards because we're going to like stop doing quite as much production. Um, yeah, so we're also starting to harvest. We have a break over the winter from harvesting. Our last veg box was in mid-December this year, and we'll start again this coming week. And that they have mostly stuff that, well, all stuff currently that's overwintered, mostly from the polytunnels. There'll be a few parsnips from outside and lots of purple sprouting broccoli and some leeks that are from outside. And then inside we have some Sutherland kale and then some different varieties of kale, but the Sutherland kale definitely does the best for us at this time of year. The spring greens are just an extraordinary crop. I love them. They like are so abundant, and they keep going and going and giving, and they kind of go in our boxes from now until they come out of the polytunnel, sort of right up until maybe like the end of June. We're able to keep harvesting them, and then we also have like things like watercress. We've got our mixed leaf salad, which has like lots of brassica salad leaves in it, and lettuce. And then we have some spring onions, and then we have like lots of chard. So our boxes at this time of year, going forward, will be quite similar to each other from week to week. And then and we won't have as many customers as we do come our main season, which starts at the sort of beginning of July. Do I have anything else to say about that?
Sorry, Anna, just a little warning.
Oh
One
my,
minute.
okay. Oh
Thank
yeah,
you.
so I was going to talk about our location for 1 minute. Yeah, so this was yesterday, just before I put those my pecs covers on for the onions. It just like started hailstoning, and it was just to give an indication that yeah, I think I take lots of photos in the sunshine and I don't take many when it's like this, but that the weather is very elemental here. Yeah, so in order to sort of like work with that, we have planted, I'm sorry, it's not a very good photo, lots of hedges on our croft, which for us have been completely vital to what we can grow. And so we planted it's like a stock-proof mix from the Woodland Trust, and we planted that on our boundary hedge, a boundary fence, which is in the direction of the prevailing wind, and then at sort of 12-meter intervals across the croft. So to like, and that just keeps the wind lifted. And it's a great sort of source of life. The hedges are really like just a lovely thing to have in the market garden. And I'm aware I've only got a minute. So, and we also do use quite a lot of EnviroMesh covers as well for our inclement kind of windage. Wind is definitely our sort of biggest kind of issue, I guess. And so it's good for us to like lift the wind even more with having covers. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much. Gosh, it's so interesting, yeah, seeing the different systems and the different like challenges and resources that we can use in different locations. Thank you, Anna, for sharing that. We'll go straight over to Finlay, and just as I said, please keep your questions coming in the chat, and we'll come straight to your questions after Finlay's spoken, and then we can open it up a bit for a panel.
Second.
No worries.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got you.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, all good.
Nice.
I think it might be in slide mode though, so maybe you want to.
Can you see?
I can see both, like your first and your second slide, but it doesn't matter. But it's just.
Oh, it's okay. I'll is that better? Is that working now?
Nothing at the moment. No, it's gone off.
Jeez. 1 second.
As before was fine.
Sorry about that.
No worries. I've got it here if you want. Welcome everybody that's just like joined whilst Anna was speaking, or somebody's just joined just now as well. It's great to have you here. We're just about to hear from Finlay from Seeds of Scotland.
Just about.
No pressure. Do you want me to do a screen share?
Yeah, maybe you could try and do screen share, and that might work better. Yeah,
Let me just find it. I say that, Finlay, and then. Okay. We've probably got everything now.
Oh yeah.
Right, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, I will mute myself and yeah, you go for it, Finlay. Do you want to just say heads up when I'll change?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. All right, well, hello everybody. I'm Finlay and I work at Seeds of Scotland. Seeds of Scotland started, I think, 3 years ago now. Myself and my partner Hayley took on a bit of land here in Easter Ross, overlooking the Cromarty Firth. It's about 2.5 acres. We have grown into the site, so when we started, we were only using a very small amount of it, and now we're taking on more and more. And now this year we're going to have the two of us working, and then there's another member of staff who works 3 days a week, and then we're also employing a trainee who'll be 3 days a week. And currently this time of year, we're also employing a member of staff who packs seeds every week. So yeah, at Seeds of Scotland, we grow and sell seeds, but we also sell a little bit of wholesale veg to local veg producer, veg box schemes, and we do some workshops and stuff like that. But this time of year is mainly focused on still selling seeds because people are buying seeds ready for the season. But also we're dealing with very similar sort of things to Connie and Anna, and that we're sowing a lot of seeds. We're preparing a lot of ground. We're making sure that stuff is ready for the season. One thing for us that's just slightly different is that, yeah, this is maybe quite a busy time of year for us, but once we plant everything out, then that's kind of, it really tails off. We have one big sowing sort of part of the beginning of the year, and then we don't really do an awful lot of successional sowing. And another thing that we're doing quite a lot of at the moment, or this last month or so, is digging up and replanting biennial crops into our polytunnels or into like spaces where we're going to put caterpillar tunnels. So things that have either been stored in the ground over winter or things that have been stored in our root storage. We plant them out as the soil warms, as the days get longer, so they can start growing again and flowering. We also have a lot of crops in our polytunnel which are overwintering for seed production. So a lot of lettuces, brassica salads, flowers like Icelandic poppies and nigellas and all this kind of things. They're all in the tunnel. And then also some very early annual seed crops we also transplant into the tunnel this time of year. So we're also transplanting some lettuces and even some spring onions and stuff like that into the tunnel to try and get a really early crop. But the main part of what I've got here is a few questions that Ellie asked for me to try and answer. So if you go to the next slide, the idea was to try and, there's 3 questions that I've tried to address. So we'll see how it goes. The first one was, how do you choose varieties with resilience in mind? Whether it's vigor, disease resistance, or stress tolerance, what do you prioritize when picking seeds at this stage of the season? So if you go to the next slide, please. So what we do a lot of is trials and variety selection. So we want to be able to produce seeds which are suitable for growers based in Scotland. So the varieties that we sell have got to be varieties that grow well in our climate. So a picture here is a picture of cabbage trial that we did last year, and the cabbages in this trial were a mixture of varieties that we got from Scandinavia and Ireland, and we grew them all out to see which ones we thought were suitable and which ones we liked the most and which ones had interesting stories. So we do a lot of that, and one of the biggest impacts we can have on the quality of the seed we can produce is to choose suitable varieties. So the quality of seed that we can produce is also directly impacted by the quality of the varieties, because if they grow well, they'll produce good seeds. So many of the trials we do are determined, we're looking for specific attributes, such as their ability to withstand adverse weather conditions, or something that will be able to deal with an earlier harvest because of short seasons, for example. So the next slide, please. So here's a few more examples of some other trials that we'll do. We spend quite a lot of time looking at other seed companies, or doing like research, speaking to people who work in walled gardens, or garden shows and stuff like that, or even people who've got a background in, Maria here is a picture of her on the left. She's got a background in heritage grains. She works with us, and we try and find as much information as we can about some specific Scottish varieties, or we're looking at other seed companies in Scandinavia or the Pacific Northwest of America or Canada. We're trying to find source seeds from these places which have got similar climates to ours, and bring them here, trial them against each other, and purely just grow out as many plants as we can and see which ones perform the best. The main things we do is like I said, grow large populations of plants, so as many as we can, and used basically a process called mass selection to select the most suitable plants, or the plants which are doing the best. We do a lot of comparative trials of commercially available varieties. So there are varieties which are out there which have been labeled as short season, good for robust, good for northern climates, or all this sort of stuff. Or there are things that people say are more challenging for growing in their conditions, and we try to find those source varieties and source multiple different varieties and trial them against each other to see which one we think works the best. We also try and source seeds from gene banks. So like Nordgen Gene Bank in Scandinavia, or Gartsleben in Germany, or the USDA Grin in the States, and we find things that are got interesting names or might have some sort of Scottish or UK story or name, and we try and grow those if we can. And then we also try and find, if there's possible, local varieties which have been developed by either home gardeners or have got a long history in certain areas. So there's the variety we sell called the Black Isle Broad Bean, and that was a variety which was developed by just an enthusiastic grower on the Black Isle over quite a long time. So we grow those varieties and assess how stable they are, how able they are for us to sell, and then try and distribute them. And then we also are trying to do a little bit more about growing diverse populations, so having a mixture of different varieties together and doing selection work to see which ones, allowing them to cross-pollinate and to see which ones adapt and grow well in our conditions. So yeah, picture here we have some oats, some old Scottish oats, and then in the middle, which is traditional for our area, we have sweet peppers, which is slightly less traditional for around here, and that was a sweet pepper trial we did. And then we also have red round radish trial. Turns out they're all quite similar. Okay, so then
Finlay, I'm just giving you a 2-minute warning, okay?
2 minutes, okay,
But
right.
we can
Next
go
slide.
over a bit if you want.
Yeah, no, next slide. How do you read the seed catalogue critically? What information is genuinely useful? So on to the next slide again, please. So basically you asked, is there any tips or tricks about reading seed catalogues? What would you do to try and figure out what's useful information, and what are you looking for when you're trying to source seeds for your market garden or for your home garden? So what I would say is that you really got to think about where the seeds are grown to see if they're important, if they're going to be useful to you or not. And it's important to realize that if you care about where your food comes from, or if you're conscientious about that, then you should also really consider where your seeds come from as well, because seeds are vegetables and they're grown in a very similar way to food. So sourcing your seeds is a similar kind of ethical thing as sourcing good quality food. So try and find out, if you can, it's not always very easy, where your seeds have been grown. It's also important to consider how they've been grown. So if they've been grown locally, or if they've been grown organically. Locally produced seeds will tend to be much better adapted to your growing conditions, and varieties bred for similar climates and similar latitudes will also tend to do better. So places like the Pacific Northwest of America or Alaska, Northern Japan, Scandinavia, these are all countries or places with similar kind of maritime climates to us. They'll tend to do better. Organic varieties are bred and grown in organic conditions and therefore should be much more suitable to growers who grow agroecologically or organically. People who don't use lots of chemical inputs. If those seeds have not been produced in that way, then they'll be doing better for your low input system. And in the UK, we do tend to import a vast majority of our seeds. Over 80% of our organic open pollinated seeds are imported. But there are small seed companies like ourselves or Vital Seeds, Real Seeds, Winter Farm Seeds, the Whale Seed Hub, who are all producing independent small seed companies who are producing seeds in our climate, and the vast majority of us are organic, who by buying seeds off of us or them, you're also supporting, small scale seed production, which allows more of these seeds to be available to more people. So I'll go quickly on the next slide. Okay. And then the next thing you asked was, is there any small seed saving decisions or observations growers can make now that will pay off later? What signs do you look for when you're searching for future seed crops? Next slide. I'll try and be quick. So I would say that spring is the best time of year to start thinking about seed saving. To ensure you're producing the best quality seeds, you should observe plants throughout their whole life cycle. We like to sow significantly more seeds than we need and select straight away when seeds are coming out for vigor at seedling stage, and only picking out and potting on the most vigorous seedlings. You can also determine quite a lot about the plant still when it's very young, even at cut to leading stage, or generally at first true leaves stage, through the color, the shape of the leaves, and if there's any irregularities or deformities in those leaves. You can really quickly make selections on that. And in general, the more seeds that you sow at that time, the better sort of selection you'll get, and the more vigorous, or the smaller selection you make, the more vigorous those plants will be. It's important to plan it into your growing space, give plants plenty of space, and then make sure that you stake and support them early and proactively and not reactively. And then there's a couple of very easy wins, which I'll go through very quickly. If you've got anything overwintering in your polytunnel at the moment, like lettuces, brassica salads, rocket, winter purslane, corn salad, or even herbs like parsley, coriander, chervil, if all those things have successfully overwintered in your polytunnel and they're happy, healthy plants now, maybe consider leaving a few of them to flower and set seed and seeing what happens. And if you leave like one lettuce plant to go to flower, you'll have enough seeds for next year for that lettuce crop, probably. Consider oversowing things like tomatoes. If you're saving your own tomato seeds, you might have an abundance of tomato seeds. Try sow 4 or 5 times more than you need, and only prick out and pot on 20% of them. And that 20% is going to be the most vigorous, the ones that come up first, that have the true leaves the fastest. Though there you're already selecting for most vigorous seedlings. So you're already starting to improve the population that you're saving and growing. And similarly, if you're growing something like peas, consider planting 110% of the peas you need, or 105% of the peas you need, and making sure that at the beginning you decide, I'm going to take seeds from 10% of that or 5% of that. And if you do that and you leave those plants until the end, you probably will have enough pea seed to cover your crop for the next year. It's all just about making sure that you plan for it beforehand. Okay, that's the next. I think that's it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's amazing, Finlay. And I just want to say how lucky we are to have a Scottish seed company doing this. And it feels like just such important investigative work that you guys are doing to find all these different varieties that are suitable for our climate, and then encouraging home growers and market gardeners to start saving our own seed to, further improve the resilience of that. So thank you. Yeah. I am so aware of time, so I'm going to skip my questions, go straight to, and I need to stop sharing. Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, we'll go straight to your questions for everyone, guys. So please pipe in. And Nim, you can see the chat? I can see the chat.
Yeah, I can. So I will read out some questions. The first two are for Connie. So Jamie Somerville asks, Connie, you did say you stopped doing no dig beds and then you restarted. What was the reason for this?
You could do a whole webinar just on that, really. But to be brief, it was really good when we first started to do that. It was kind of like a cheat because everything was very clean. The crops were really brilliant and there were no weeds. But it's expensive. It's a big input. It's a lot of work to move it around. There's questions about, are you adding too much facility to the soil? Lots of things that we're not really, don't really fully understand. And so when we took on that was when we just had 2 acres. When we took on the next 2 acres, we decided to do things a bit differently, because we couldn't afford to do 4 acres on deep compost mulch. I think it works really well in smaller settings, and if you keep adding lots of compost every year, then it probably stays quite clean. But we eventually weeds will come. from somewhere. And if you don't have really good strategies for weed management, then it, it will just not become a nice, clean, no dig bed anymore. It will just become part of the weedy mess of your farm. And I think that's why we stopped doing it. But we're reintegrating it a bit now as a trial, really, because like I said, we grow all our onions from seed, and we don't use a lot of Mypex really. And we've been trying to grow them in um, in our new field in just beds that we've prepared really minimally through like mowing and tarping, power harrowing if necessary. Um, and last year, I think we hoed the beds 4 times, and they were still completely weedy. So I mean, that's obviously why people use Mypex, but we're growing a lot of onions, and yeah, we just thought let's bring back the no dig system for one part of the farm, use it for the alliums that really need it, and we can sort of add that amount of fertility, in rotation, as part of our rotation, like our fertility plan for the farm, and see how that goes. That's kind of the answer to that question, I think.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. Thank you. Next one is from Mary Silk. She says, Connie, what kind of inoculations are you considering?
Yeah, I think that was in relation to the seeds, to the seed sowing stage.
Yeah.
The plan there is to use, so we have a wormery now. With the plan is to use like vermicast extract in water and spray it onto the seed trays after they've been sown and before we cover them up with compost. But we've also just had a soil test done by the Soil Ecology Lab, which offers a bit of a more in-depth test than we can get from, we used NRM before, but they do. What's really good is that they show you what's in your soil, but then they show you what's available in your soil to your plants. So it might conventional soil test might show you whatever values, but actually because of whatever else is going on in your soil, physical or biological reasons, not that much of it is actually available to the plants. And it looks like we have very, very low, pretty much no molybdenum. And it's a trace element, but it's really, really important for uptake of nitrogen. So we might be adding some form of molybdenum at that stage into the seeds so that they can take it with them as they go out into the farm and sort of spread it that way. Those are the two main things we're considering.
That's great. Thank you. Finlay, nice wee comment for you, which has just said, thank you very much. It's been very interesting. So far, we've had great germination rate from your seeds this year in Dernock.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah. And a question for you as well from Alice Hornsby saying, what size caterpillar tunnels are you using? I would like to introduce a large one into my garden, but I think I would lose it to the wind or spend a lot of time having to take it down and put it back up.
Yeah, that's a good question. We actually have 3 caterpillar tunnels. They're all about, we bought them at 30 meters, but we took a couple, I think we do one less hoop, so I think they're about 27 meters long. We leave the hoops up over winter. So basically we have 3 of them, and then we try and move only one of them. Well, the plan is to only move one of them every year, and leave the other 2 in for 2 years in the same spot. So we just leave the hoops where they are, and then we'll cover them probably sometime in April, and then take them off again, the covers off again in late, well, September, October time, early October time, depending on what's in there. We have a fairly windy site. I mean, everybody's got a fairly windy site to a certain extent, but our caterpillar tunnels do get a bit of a bashing. I found that, like, generally they're okay. Last August, that was a really nasty blow that came through. We had a lot of wind up with us, and we had a caterpillar tunnel up, and it did very much look like it was going to blow away, but it didn't, thankfully. We use a lot of rock bags around the edges, and we tie them down with a lot of string. And our caterpillar tunnels have also got, or a couple of them have also got crop bars in there, which also helps keep them a bit more rigid. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that answers well. And Anna, sadly, no questions for you, which I think you should take away as you answered everything very concisely in your presentation. So well done on that.
Shall we open
Um,
up to the floor if anybody else wants to jump in and
yeah,
say anything about their context? And if you've got any questions that relate, that would be really, really great to hear from you. We've just got 5 minutes left. But no, if there aren't any, then I can jump in.
I was just going to say about the seed inoculation. My previous workplace, not with vegetable seeds, with Mecanopsis, Himalayan poppies, they are using seaweed extract. They are a seaweed farm as well, so they send their seaweed off to Sweden and they get seaweed extract back in return, and they use that to help improve germination. That's interesting for anybody. I don't know what it would be like on veg, but for ornamental, it works really well.
Great. Thank you, Alice. That's awesome. And Anna, with all that access to seaweed, it's amazing what you could do with all the potions. I was just going to ask, yeah, what if you had to strip your system right back, and I think I'll put this to Anna, what would be the one thing that you would prioritize this spring?
Well, we kind of have stripped our system back quite a lot. We have had in the past, we've had trainees and woofers to great success. But we're sort of like coming to a point where we would really like to employ someone, but we want to like kind of work out how yeah, just exactly how much we earn per hour, because we're not exactly sure if we're making kind of living wage on that, and so we wouldn't want to employ someone or go into partnership with someone and not kind of know that. So we're sort of gone back to basics in terms of the number of staff we have, and it's just me and Hanno. And so I feel like we've sort of stripped things back in terms of that number of people, and therefore have then also um, sort of really consolidating kind of what we do and making sure that we're just growing stuff that really makes sense to us and growing to the size that we can grow to, that the land can work with. We have in the past, I think, been because we've been trying to earn all of our living from the market garden, and we haven't had enough, quite enough sort of space to do that. We've been really like working the land and ourselves very hard. So I think we sort of stripping back in terms of really realizing how much time and sort of energy that we can put in to the garden, and also to the land, and doing sort of like thinking that we won't try and fit in like two crops per year, but just to fit in I'm not yeah, fit in one crop per year and then have time in our season for a green manure to overwinter. Whereas we haven't really felt like we've had sort of time to do that. And so with that we've sort of reduced the number of boxes we're doing to try and sort of find that sweet spot where there's yeah, where we're like able to produce all the veg from the land that we're on. Yeah, so I don't know if I've really answered that question, but just trying to
Right.
like kind of be realistic, I think, with how much can get done in a limited time, and on the piece of land that we're on, and keeping it all, yeah, keeping the land in as best health as we can.
Yeah.
okay. We've got two other questions that have come in, so maybe we just have a quick fire across everyone on this. So the first one is from Lenka. They say, I wonder what weed management people have found most effective on this scale. Which I guess you can only talk about the scale that you're operating at. So what's been the most effective weed control for yourself? Connie?
We're trying to be stricter about it, but we have a hoe diary. So when things get planted, we write it in the diary. 10 days from when it gets planted, it needs to be hoed, and another 10 days after that. Depending on the time of year, we might move it to 7 days, more in the summer. And just being really hot on that is really important. And what we try and do is on the second hoeing, or maybe sometimes the third, depending on the context, we'll undersow. So we undersow all our brassicas. And yeah, I think I mentioned that some of the more the autumn things also get undersown. But yeah, there's always going to be some weeds. I think is sort of at some point you have to come to terms with that, maybe. um, but yeah, that's our what we try and do.
That's great. Anna?
Yeah, I think hoeing is just like so important. I think yeah, it's like and you can kind of feel like, oh, have I killed everything? And not to be too precious about it, but to kind of do it. And I think I always have the temptation to like bend down and like pick stuff up and have my weeding trug with me that I'm kicking along the ground. And I try sort of sometimes not to do that, to not have the weeding trug with me, just to hoe. I love the oscillating hoe that you can get from Reag Tools, which you can do with hoeing stuff when it's a bit wider spacing, and then the wire hoe that you have with like lots of that you can put different attachments on, and so this like really easy to kind of weed around things like lettuce, like we do all our salads. We do is like salad bags with cut and come again lettuce, and after harvesting that, I'll go around with the wire hoe and just give the whole bed like a hoe over. Yeah, and just know that I'm not going to kill all of the weeds, but that then I'll be hoeing again. And we haven't quite got a weeding diary. I think that sounds like a great plan to have that. Yeah, to make it more systematic because sometimes it's easy, I think, to let the weeds get away before you hoe, which is not a good idea. It's best to yeah get on top of them before they kind of get established.
Finlay, what's your take on it?
Yeah, again, like a lot of hoeing, like lot, little and often seems to be the best for us. We've been doing a lot of direct sowing, so we've also been trying to do a lot of stale seed beds. So we will cultivate and then leave it for a couple of weeks, depending on the time of year, and then we'll go in and cultivate again quickly before we sow. And we're also trying to do a lot more undersowing, so getting sort of white clovers and stuff like that in the paths of areas, and trying to get them to sort of cover the problem a little bit. The other thing we did last year also was we had loads of dandelions everywhere flowering early summer or late spring. We spent 2 days just digging up all of the flowering dandelions on the farm and got two massive trailers full of them. And it felt like that was a lot of work at the time, but I think that helped a lot. So we basically any flowering dandelions and thistles and everything like that, we just spent like a couple of afternoons just digging everything up as much as we could, because they were just going to go everywhere. So that stuff like that, trying to be proactive, getting in there often as soon as there's small stuff in there, helps a lot. And also having hose everywhere, so like putting them in tunnels, putting them in prop tunnels, putting them in your pockets. We started getting these tiny little finger hose that you can put in your pocket, so like if you're just anywhere and you see some weeds, you can just smash them. Yeah,
I think you need to send everyone a link to this finger hoe. That sounds good.
yeah, I think it's called a speedy weeder. It's just like a piece of metal that's like twisted around. It's about this sort of size. I think it costs like £3 or something. You could make it out of like a clothes, what do you call it?
Coat hanger.
Coat hanger, yeah. Probably. And it's actually super handy. We just tried them out this spring, and like every time I go in the tunnel, I pick it up, and then as I'm walking around, I just do a little bit.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Great. We have another question in from Chris Steele, and he's got mare's tail nightmare. I think we've all been there, haven't we? So he says, I wonder if anyone can advise on how to eradicate mare's tail from a polytunnel. We're absolutely riddled with it, as the garden was abandoned a few years ago. We need to start getting stuff in the beds, but there's very few that are clear of the mare's tail. Does anyone want to jump in with a mare's tail solution.
I don't have a solution, unfortunately. I think it's really, really difficult. Like organically, you're just gonna have to dig it out or um tarp it for as long as you possibly can. But even then, you maybe doing a bastard fallow might work if you cultivate and rake and cultivate and rake and but I yeah, it's it's hard. Sorry.
Thanks. Yeah, that's essentially where we're at the moment is digging out because yeah, we are organics. So yeah, very few situations I want to spray something, but I could quite happily spray that one. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I feel your pain. That's
definitely
a hard one.
really. It's just on bad days that I wish I could spray it, but I wouldn't do it. And thanks to Jamie Somerville for his suggestion as well. That's great.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, guys, I'm really aware that we're coming to time, so I'm gonna close it down, although I know that we could go on for hours, and especially with you amazing panelists, thank you so much for making it this evening. I know that you've just got such a wealth of information that we could all keep going with questions for the whole evening, but we must go, and I hope that's been really useful for people. I hope you've gone away with something practical and also just the shared sort of solidarity and that this is humbling work and we're all figuring it out, and yeah, and also to kind of keep in touch and reach out to people because although you are all probably going to enter a mega busy phase of not being able to keep up with all your messages, but people are so willing to help and support each other. So yeah, do reach out to each other. Yeah, I think that's it all really. Thank you so much for being here and making time for this, and hope to see you all at another event soon. You can take off.
Thanks, Lily.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.